massive amounts of buzz coming into the auto sector these days, lots of new products, but there's one in particular that has really taken all of us by storm. It was expected, I can tell you, the hype was always there. Now the substance follows the hype. I am talking about the Mahindra XUV 700. Joining me to talk more about everything that's gone into this car is a gentleman who knows it inside out, quite literally. R. Velusamy is the Global Product Development Chief at Mahindra. It is great to see you.
Hi, sir.
Thank you for letting us in today into MRV, Mahindra Research Valley outside Chennai, to get a good understanding on everything that has gone into your new baby. First things first, when you talk about doing a new generation car, there's always the aspect of improving, of course. But in this case, just the word improvement doesn't cover it, right?
We wanted to go to the next orbit.
Next orbit, yeah, I like that.
And in every aspect of structure, technology, detailing. So that's what you see it in that car.
Now, one of the things, of course, which our viewers will remember is that Mahindra has a commitment towards safety, which means every new vehicle that is coming out of Mahindra and Mahindra today, not just today, for some time now, really sort of starts its life in development terms, using that as its central core theme. Behind me, what you see is just what makes up that level of safety when it comes to the structure of the vehicle. Run us through this, sir, because I think a lot of people sometimes don't understand that there are different grades of metal, steel, alloys that have to go into a vehicle to guarantee, a certain amount of stiffness and therefore crash capability.
Correct.
But here you've also got a completely new way in which you have designed and built this, right?
Correct. So you rightly pointed out that we have 4 grades of steel. For example, the mild steel 400 Newton per millimeter square, high strength steel, advanced high strength steel, and then boron steel. These are the 4 steels. Typically, boron steel are rarely
Ultra
used.
high strength, as they say.
Yeah. We have used the boron steel here. 21% we have used out of 360 kilos of this BIW. 21% we have used. So you have a crash tip which crashes during the frontal crash, offset crash. But what is very important is to this cage where the occupants are sitting, all the crash deformations can happen only up to this end.
You don't want any of those forces
We
traveling
don't
into
want
the
any
cabin.
of that to happen. So this complete cage is made
Protected.
out of the boron steel. So what you see here is a trident structure. Trident means three-zone we call it
Three-way,
as.
yeah.
So the force comes here, gets divided into 3 paths. The sill bottom, which absorbs the maximum energy, then comes to the door reinforcement, and then a pillar. So this is about 10-15%, 10-15%. The rest is going towards this. So because this is a larger section, so we want that load to come here. From this member, you can see it. So this is the crash member. The load is diverted to the bottom, where that is large section.
Now, the fact that you have done this is, of course, in keeping with the top international standards. But it's not just about having these different kinds of, let's say, steel alloys, but it's also about this ring structure. That's
Ring
new
structure,
for you.
yes, absolutely. So what you see here is a ring structure
It's this
along
way,
with the
the
trident
ring.
structure.
Yeah.
In the cross transverse section, you will see a ring structure. There are 5 rings that is constructed. So along with the trident structure and the 5 ring structure, this cage becomes extremely stiff. So compared to the current, our predecessor, we have improved the torsional stiffness, global torsional stiffness by 80% and bending stiffness by 70%.
When I first heard that, by the way, we were chatting before we started filming, I couldn't get my mind around this. 80% more is unbelievable. I mean, I know we went through this as well.
Yeah.
But, the part that I think affects all of this is that on the one hand, of course, it enhances safety big time. But you have to also keep in mind what it does to drive dynamics.
Correct.
So how do you sort of keep a handle on making sure that you get a good balance between drive dynamics and safety?
So there is drive dynamics, there is safety, and there is refinement, NVH performance. The safety, the stiffness, and the refinement demands a little bit more weight, and the drive dynamics demands lesser
Less weight.
So it's an always trade-off, and the CO2 demands always lower weight. So there is a name that is lightweight index. So how much your BIW weight divided by the stiffness divided by the projected area of the car. So we were at, the predecessor were about 8 and we came down to 3.9.
Less than half.
The industry benchmark today is 4.1. The latest competition that is released into the markets, 4.1, we are at 3.9. So this is the best. That's coming because 21% we are using boron steel. And therefore we can significantly reduce the weight and increase the stiffness. So if you see the stiffness value, torsional stiffness value, it is about 20.1.
That's actually the highest.
That is actually the highest.
So what part of this was important to you to make sure that you have like a benchmark or segment best figure? Why was that so important?
Because we need to get the weight lower to get the drive dynamics and CO2. At the same time, to get the refinement, safety, we needed this torsional stiffness of the whole body. If it is stiff, then it doesn't make micro movements. And if it makes micro movement, then the car is not refined. So we have to avoid the micro movements. So to avoid the micro movements, if you see the ring structure that we have talked about to get these stiffness values, we are also using 154 meters of structural adhesives, so to make sure that all the steel layers are sticking to each other. These structural adhesives in the BIW, when it goes for painting during baking, they melt and then they make
Sort of
these
fuse
tools
together.
fuse together. We also
That is a
needed
great thing, yes. You have to tell me this.
6,500 weld spots. You see these weld spots, the two steel layers, when they stick together through adhesive, when you put the weld spots, it's like putting the bolts. Now, the pitch has to be much lower in order to make it very strong, to get the benefit of both the layers' strength. And we were using half of this in the olden, the predecessor. We have increased significantly, but double.
And to give you a perspective, the 700 gets 6,570 spot welds. As Velu said, the predecessor, that's the 500, used to have about half that number. And the benchmark in the segment, or the best that we had until this car came along, is about 4,000. So it gives you a sense of how much more stiffness you get. The reason for that is that way, as he said, the two panels, they work as one. They don't feel like two separate panels. I think that's the easiest way to explain this to you. And I think explain, or correct me if I'm wrong, majority of the competition tends to focus spot welds on areas of higher weight, like the engine bay, and not throughout the body. While what you've done is you've distributed this across the body. Here, of course, you can see the different kinds of steel that have gone in. 45% of what you're seeing here on the body in white is made of either advanced high strength or ultra high strength steel. That's a huge difference because the 500, for example, didn't have it. Now you can see 45% of the vehicle. And you can see the color coding here. What you're seeing in brown, yeah, that's the boron steel that we were talking about.
Yes.
And it's not just on this section of the car where you might imagine, okay, for side impact you need it. It's not just in the front where you think you might need it. It's also here on the sill of the vehicle. So that a lot of the force gets distributed and carried down, doesn't come into the area where the passenger is sitting. Remember, in a crash situation, that is what you want. You want the car to absorb the impact, not the person inside it. So that is, I mean, compliments to your team. I know that you will be striving for a 5-star rating on this one because it's sort of an important part of what has become culture for you at Mahindra.
Absolutely.
Plastic tailgate, a lot of questions around that from a lot of our viewers. The assumption is that you've done it to sort of cut cost or, just cut weight, and that somehow it is unsafe. Explain to us how it is actually not a cost-cutting thing. If anything, you said it costs more, and why you chose to go with a plastic tailgate.
So it is the design philosophy that wanted a very short, deep
recess
into this, and therefore we wanted the plastic tailgate. It's a one single piece. But what you see behind is the structural member here. The structural member is very stiff, similar to the steel, even in better than the steel, because it is a glass fiber-filled plastic material. So this is very, very hard material, very strong, and it is capable of taking the rear crash. And this is a flexible material that in the event of any damage, it just comes back. So it's not hard. and the inside one is hard. So they are bonded together.
And the weight reduction, you said, is about 3-4
It's
kgs.
roughly about 3-4 kilos, but more than the weight, it is the shape that we wanted to achieve in the rear, and therefore we have to go to plastic technology.
All right, that's a cool thing again. and
Yes,
it's not
but
done.
it's very, very strong.
Yeah, so I think,
extremely
again, this is about explaining to people why it was done rather than people assuming that it was you're somehow cheapening the process. It's actually the opposite.
It's a costlier.
You're actually going costlier. Powertrains is a whole separate conversation, so I won't go there just yet.
Yes.
Though, of course, you know that there is a lot of variety and choice when it comes to the 700 in terms of the drivetrain options. But suspension is a huge area. Again, a lot of people care about this today increasingly because a lot of people are driving their cars outside the city as well. In a nutshell, I know that just on suspension we can spend a whole day discussing what all has been done. But in a nutshell, when you had the 500, what was the big change that you were looking for?
So in a multi-link suspension layout, when it goes to the rumbles and the rough roads, the roads imperfections were being read by the suspension system and being passed on to the floor and floor to seat. So we found that there is a soft link that needs to be added to prevent that vibrations going to all the way to the seat. So we introduced a control blade technology, which is famous in sedan vehicles. And this bushing that is there, whenever the tire goes into the pothole, it hits the edge of the pot and moves back, and that shock to be absorbed by a rubber bushing. So when it moves back in this direction, in the horizontal direction, it has a shock absorbing rubber material. So it avoids all the vibrations going all the way back to the seat.
So essentially, instead of sending that force back upwards, it keeps it horizontal.
Horizontal, yeah. So that is the control blade technology that
I liked how your colleague explained it to me earlier, that in effect it enhances the wheelbase by a few millimeters.
Yeah, few millimeters. It moves in
give you this way movement rather than...
It moves 3 millimeter when you hit a pothole, and that 3 millimeter the rubber is compressing instead of passing to the vibrations to the...
So it gets absorbed right here and it doesn't travel up to the seat.
Absolutely.
Especially for the rear seat passenger, this makes a huge difference.
Huge difference.
Yeah,
the rear ride quality is significantly
on the 500, a lot of people used to have that grouse as well. But even in the front, actually in the entire suspension setup, the one thing that I have picked up is it's not just about making things more efficient or lighter, but even just physically the size of all of this assembly has become a lot more compact.
Compact, yeah. Because
that was intentional.
Intentional. Because the force is equal to mass into acceleration. So whenever you go into undulations, the rate of change of the wheel is called the acceleration. But if the mass of the entire system is lower, then the force going to the body is less. So then the vibration experienced by the passenger is less. So fundamentally, we have to keep the masses lower. So if you see it an aluminum knuckle, you see it a well-tuned, very stiff K-frame. It is 60% of today's construction, mass-wise. So therefore, everywhere we reduce the weight and we moved the steering, assist the steering motor to the out of this frame with a U-joint. So Y yoke joint, and therefore these masses are not vibrating in resonance with the wheel.
It just cuts down potential vibrations.
It
also,
cuts
not
down
just
the potential
actual vibrations. The other thing that's really interesting for me is, he mentioned in passing about using an aluminum knuckle. Think of a cast iron knuckle, just the sheer weight of that, the impact when you go through a pothole or go over a speed breaker, everything just kind of gets enhanced when the weight is higher. Here, by reducing the weight and still not affecting the strength or the stiffness of the piece, you actually achieve much higher comfort levels without affecting the dynamics. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes,
now, this is a very
right.
interesting thing that has been done. This is the first time you've done this at Mahindra.
Yes.
The frequency selective dampening.
Okay.
So please explain that to us.
So there is two kinds of motion in the vehicle. One is the body motion. That's about 1 hertz when you go over the bump or a speed breaker, and on the corner when you go, the body slowly moves like this. That's
way,
about 1 cycle per second. That's 1 hertz. When you go on a rough road, you get about 10 hertz. That is
which is constant.
Which is the wheel movement alone. So there is a wheel movement and there is a body movement. If these two, if I try to take it with a single technology to isolate from the comfort, from the seat, then it is too difficult, because for 1 hertz,
or you compromise dynamics.
Or you compromise dynamics. So if you see here, the damper gives at 1 hertz body damping about 90 kilo resistance. It doesn't allow the body to rotate, roll. But when you go on an the undulated road or a rough road, the wheel moves at anything between 10 to 15 hertz. It keeps on moving like this, moving up and down, moving up and down.
Like on a concrete
That
road.
time, the same damper drastically reduces to about 25 kgf. That's the only force you
That's
need.
where the selective part comes in.
Selective part comes in. So the damper completely absorbs the wheel movement and it doesn't pass on to the
Doesn't
customer.
travel.
Suppose if I were to use non-FSD damper, I would have been at 50, then the damper is diff.
And then you decide as a team where to find a sort of a balance.
Balance.
You compromise both ways, but
Both
you then
ways.
try and, either you go for dynamics or you go for comfort, and you try and find that. This is how you used to work in the past vehicles.
Correct. So either you will have, still roll you will have, but you are not happy with the ride.
Yeah, and you'll always compromise on one or the other. While here, that's the beauty of it. You're not really compromising on one or the other. And to put it in terms which are slightly easier to understand, I think the comparison can be made to something like an adaptive air suspension, which is a lot more advanced, a lot more expensive. But why does that become important for some of those high-end cars? Well, it's again just this whole flexibility of being able to do both functions with equal measure. So what an FSD really does is brings you almost up to that level. So when it comes to conventional damping, if you want to call it that, this is literally the top of the range kind of solution. And therefore it is expensive, and yet it was adopted because I guess you didn't want to compromise.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm
Actually,
sure that
this is a
your
generation.
management wasn't happy with any of these decisions. You're just adding a lot of costs.
No. This is generation 1 is 50% lower in here. We took the generation 2 because we needed that gap. Because I wanted a body to be stiff. We don't want the body roll. At the same time, we want that ride to be absorbed by the damper.
And
so
that's
this
again,
gap has to be higher in
when you say
generation 2.
generation 1 and 2, this is coming from the supplier. Like they
This
have
the
enhanced
technology, the FST technology, we took the generation 2.
So you opted for the more expensive
More
one.
expensive.
Again, the correlation there is that existing products in our market that do use FSD, so far nobody's using generation 2. This is now going to be the first vehicle that has generation 2. So try and think of that in terms of, how much of a difference it makes to both the dynamics as well as the ride quality. All of this ties into safety. We started with safety and we come back to safety now with this cutout here. 7 airbags and the top end. Of course, dual airbags are standard. And perhaps you'll have 5 airbags in the middle. But it's not just about airbags, of course, as we always have been saying. I can see ISOFIX and so many other considerations that go into this.
Yes.
How much of a, let's say, cost difference or saving would there have been had you not had this safety approach? A significant chunk could have been saved, right? In
Not
development
really.
costs.
If you look at say the structure, it's
No,
combined.
I'll tell you where I'm coming from.
Okay.
You're giving me an engineering answer.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say is that we can see that there are many players in the market who don't do all of this. They don't have a ring structure. They don't use ultra high strength steel because there's a sort of a basic minimum that is required in terms of regulations.
Yes.
What you've done is you're going much further than that.
Correct.
So cost difference is huge, obviously.
No, in the structure we don't see a cost difference because when you use ultra strength steel, boron steel, you reduce the weight. So per kg there is a extra cost that you pay, but the total kg weight is reduced. So there, in a way, you are compensating.
I'm glad you said this. The reason why I wanted this to come out is because it just goes to show you that making these differences or switches are actually not expensive at the manufacturing end. It's a philosophy change that's required, but it makes a huge difference to the actual vehicle's safety performance. And I think that's the part which
this actually comes during the design. Once you have done it, it is very difficult to change it. That's why probably it's very difficult for many people
it has to be
change.
from when you start
From
on
the-
a piece
from
of
the-
paper, the first thing that you start off, you have to keep this in mind.
Correct.
All right. So safety, like I said, of course, goes without saying in a Mahindra vehicle. We expect this now. Going by everything that we've seen here, and of course, like I said, powertrain is its whole own topic.
There's one thing that I wanted to explain.
Yeah,
Is,
please.
So the third row until the D pillar is completely covered as you see. So
In fact,
typically
you might want
in
to go
a
to the back and show us that.
curtain airbag,
Yeah.
typically we leave the third
it
row.
ends here.
Yeah, because it's a two-seater we leave, but we didn't leave that. And you see the color difference, this is a red one and this is a white one. So you have a 35 millimeter hole here.
Yes.
As soon as the crash happens, airbag deploys. You deplete because you need breathe. But on the side, we don't have
Cushioning
a
stays.
cushioning stays because
You may be
it may
turned
take
over
long.
or-
If it is toppled, then it may take a longer time. So we don't want the head to hit the metal. So it's a different airbag. We brought in that as
And that's also new. You haven't
this
used
also
that in
new,
the past.
and until end of the T-pillar. So
Yeah.
everybody is safe.
Yeah, and again in a configuration where you may not have the side airbag, you'll still have that curtain airbag going all the way, like Velu said, to the third row, which is very important. No, but what I was saying is that in all of this, one big thing that plays a huge role now is technology. Whether it is at the development stage, you're using technology to do a lot of the simulations, and then of course there's this, which is like a little crown jewel in your new car. The Visteon twin screen display, it's not just about having two touch screens, right? Or two screens. It goes much beyond that.
Yes, it's it has multiple functions. For example, you have an infotainment, then you have a video beam coming from all your USBs, video song you can play. Then you have Alexa, online control and offline control.
Alexa has come to life the minute you said Alexa.
And
Cancel.
Then you have connected car features. Over 60 features we have connected car features.
Playing music from USB.
Okay, Alexa, thank you. So you have the connected car technology, then you have the videos, then we have audios, and the Sony audio system that is integrated to this. When you have all these elements of entertainment elements, we wanted a computing power that is far higher, 3 times the current one.
Little baby
So-
right here, right? Let me pick it up and show it to everybody.
Yes. So this is the
That's a Qualcomm chip.
Qualcomm chip, Snapdragon chip,
6
which
GB.
is 6 GB. That's the memory, and then you have a 30,000 million instructions per second. When I do like this, it executes 30,000 million instructions. So you can literally use the navigation, you can use the songs, you can use audio system, you can use phones, you can use Alexa. Simultaneously, you can use
And she's back.
Alexa, thank you back.
Alexa, cancel.
So you really can use multiple things.
Yeah.
So therefore, we wanted this technology upgrade, significantly upgrade than current to 1.5 to 2 GB to 6 GB.
Yeah.
I think as far as my knowledge goes, 6 GB is the ultimate limit that in the auto industry that's being used, at least in the Asia.
No, and wrap your head around that, right? Previous car, 1 or 1.5 GB.
1.5 GB.
Now, 6 GB. And the one who shall not be named for obvious reasons uses 1 GB of that computing power, by the way. So, which is just goes to show you that you almost had that pre-decision that, okay, if 1/6 of the power is getting diverted to that system, then you're going to need additional power to make everything else run. The quality of the screen, the construction of the screen, the materials used, this is something that Visteon has brought to the table. I won't get into the technical details of it, but I just want to explain this one aspect. Imagine in Indian conditions, all of this computing power, all of this functionality, and then you have a lot of heat that obviously gets built up. It's this magnesium alloy at the back of this screen which houses everything. That's crucial because you could have had maybe a steel component, but it wouldn't have the heat absorbing capability that magnesium would have had. And this allows, even though there's a cost implication, it allows you to reduce weight, but it also gives you much better thermal management. And for me, this was important, not
Yes.
just to understand from a techie point of view, but just, Indian conditions. I mean, we always have extreme heat situations
So
building
we
up
wanted
inside
a
the cabin.
refrigerator around this dual screen.
Yeah.
So the magnesium alloy is, you touch it, how cool it is, you can
Yeah.
see it. You touch this is not cool. Steel is not cool, but this
Yeah,
is
there's a
very
difference
cool.
between them.
You can easily feel. So it's a refrigerator. We don't want a fan running behind and then the fan noise coming.
I was going to say, then that
Yeah.
creates a sound issue.
Sound issue. So that's magnesium. You know the display is a LOCA bonded between the glass and the screen, digital screen. Because when you have an air, it has a different refractive indices, and then you have a truly 2D with digital screen. But that image, if you have to see it in the glass that is covering, you have to remove the air and then fill in with a LOCA bonding, which has the same refractive indices as the screen, and so you get a real digital image, and that's the beauty of this dual screen.
And the touch response also goes up. You don't have as much reflection, of course, as Velu said, which is a very big thing again in sunny conditions. You don't want to be struggling to see what's on the screen. What's interesting about the screen is it also plays HD video for you if you have it stored on a, let's say, the inbuilt memory or on a stick drive. Of course, it will not play when the car is moving because you do not want to be distracted when you're driving. But it's got a terrific output when it comes to the sound, thanks to the Sony system. And the one thing which I want to quickly also put across, which a lot of you wrote in and asked, what happens in lower variants? Well, of course, the screen configuration changes. You get an 8-inch screen, but the good news is that screen has also been developed by the guys at Visteon. Yes. So in terms of functionality and display resolution, it is still right up there. That was again important, right?
Absolutely.
The base version shouldn't seem stripped down or shouldn't seem
We didn't
cheap.
want to give that experience. So we wanted to give a better experience even for base version. So we gave it to Visteon.
Why was all of this important? Because, I mean, think about it. Even your base version, 8-inch screen, that's a pretty good size. You could have maybe still built in, the capability of the voice that's responding. I won't say the name. And you could have gone with conventional dials with a little information, TFT or whatever in the middle. Why was it important to do a virtual cluster and a big screen?
So this is the technology upgrade or the next shift in orbit technology shift. Whether it is BIW, whether it is suspension, whether it is engine, powertrain that you have seen, whether it is infotainment, whether it is connected car or the music system, everywhere we want to go to the orbit shift in terms of technology, in terms of engineering, in terms of bring the excellence and the refinement and the technology, everything together in the car. If you drop one thing, it doesn't match to the rest. There is no harmony and resonance. So we wanted to get everything up to the next generation.
Just the best that is possible.
Just the best.
What this really does is it shakes things up in the segment because it moves benchmarks miles ahead. It also future-proofs these products because by seeing this, you get a sense of what will come from Mahindra, of course, in the future, right? I think that's, again, a good message for a lot of people to
This will be
have.
our standard.
This will become like like your standard. And one quick thing I want to also clarify is something that I learned today, which I didn't know. A lot of the in-car functionality or capability, where you want to use voice commands to maybe open the sunroof, for example, none of that needs connection to the cloud or the network. That's a very big plus because otherwise what you tend to see in a lot of cars is that, it'll keep looking for network, keep looking for connectivity, and only then carry out the function. Here, a lot of that is offline. Car functionality, all offline, everything else, whether it's navigation, music, etc., which needs connectivity, of course, works with the inbuilt eSIM, which is from Vodafone that is already inbuilt to it. So this part, again, I think it's a very smart way of approaching it.
Yes.
Because otherwise, as a user, you tend to struggle given the networks in our country are still not quite up there. Huge kudos to your team. I think just what I'm also perceiving is the approach that you've taken to developing the car is so different. You've not started where you would have otherwise started in the past. Translating all this to production has obviously got to be a challenge. It's a lot more complex. So my last question to you is this. How are you going to be able to keep up all of this at the production end? Because from what we are hearing, there's going to be a massive rush of bookings.
So most of them, it is in the design and in the robotics of the production line. Very less we left it to the manual operation. So therefore, the production consistency
it's baked in.
It's built in. It is in the design philosophy. Once you inbuilt it in this, the quality is very easy to achieve.
It's more like a default from there on.
More of a default.
That's even better to hear.
Yeah.
And again, thank you for spending this time with us. Huge congratulations to you and your team.
Thank you.
Can't wait to see how the market responds and reacts and creates new benchmarks, of course. Thank you.
Thank you for coming all over from
No,
Mumbai
we're
to here.
very happy to be here today.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So lots then to take in. And by the way, what I've told you is possibly just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more. And the point that Velu was making about things being baked into the product right from design onwards, it also means a lot of changes at the manufacturing end. So that's something we'll bring you. I'm going to now start to work on getting us across to Chakan to see the car being built. Because what you had as an assembly line or a tooling for the 500, for example, huge change. Everything has been completely redone to now accommodate this car because the way it is being made is also new. It is also different. So huge changes and yes, a huge learning for all of us. hopefully for you as well. Thank you for watching, and remember that we have all the other details in terms of the way the car drives and its dynamics, and of course all the in-car functionality right here on Car and Bike. Please drive safe, wear your seatbelts.